Ladies and gentlemen, let me tell you something right now about men and the way we love. See, a lot of people think men are simple, that we don't have deep emotions or deep desires, but that's not the truth. A man, when he truly falls in love, he starts to dream and fantasize about one thing above all: taking care of that woman in every way possible. That's the real picture of a man's heart. Men express love in a way that is often misunderstood, and that misunderstanding creates confusion in relationships. A lot of times people expect men to show love the same way they do, but that's not how we are wired. Men are not naturally built to be overly verbal, emotional, or expressive with every little thing. Instead, we show love through our actions, through the things we do that may not look romantic on the surface, but they carry a deep message. When a man loves, he moves differently. He wakes up thinking about how he can make his woman's life easier, how he can solve problems for her, how he can stand in the gap when she feels overwhelmed. That is his way of speaking the language of love. For a man, love is about doing. You may not always hear the "I love you" every single day, but you will see it when he makes sure you're safe. You will see it when he sacrifices his own comfort to make sure you're good. You will notice it when he quietly does the things nobody else will do, because he doesn't want you to carry that weight alone. That's how men communicate their hearts. We don't always do it with flowers or long speeches. We do it with consistency, effort, and presence. And here's the thing, men also love differently because of the way we are taught to handle emotions. From a young age, boys are told not to cry, not to be too soft, not to wear their hearts on their sleeves. So when a man grows up, he's not always going to express love the way you might expect. But that doesn't mean it's not there. It means you have to look deeper. It means his love may be quieter, but it's just as real. If anything, it's stronger because it shows up in the grind, in the sacrifices, in the way he shows commitment without even having to say it out loud. Now, when a man truly loves, you'll notice he makes space for you in his life. He will adjust his priorities, sometimes without even announcing it. He will rearrange his schedule, shift his focus, and start making decisions that don't just benefit him, but both of you. That's love. It may not be wrapped up in a lot of words, but it's there in every action. A man's way of saying, "You matter to me," is to make sure you're included in his plans, his dreams, his tomorrow. Another thing people overlook is that men love by protecting. He may not say it every day, but he's thinking about your safety, your well-being, and how to keep you from harm. That's not something he talks about in public, but it's something he carries in his mind constantly. And that protective instinct is one of the strongest signs of love a man can ever give. He might not express it with poetry, but he'll express it with loyalty. Men love differently, but when you learn to recognize their way, you will see how deep and powerful it truly is. When a man truly falls in love, something changes inside him. His whole mindset shifts from thinking about just himself to imagining how he can protect and provide for the person he loves. This isn't just about money or material things. It's much deeper than that. Men carry a natural desire to be the shield and the anchor. They fantasize about being the one who stands in front of the storm, who makes sure that no harm can touch the woman they care about. That thought alone gives a man purpose. He dreams about being her safe place, her protector, the one she can depend on no matter what life throws their way. For a man, protection isn't only about physical safety, though that is part of it. He wants to make sure she never feels exposed, unguarded, or vulnerable in ways that break her spirit. He wants to fight battles she shouldn't have to fight, to take on pressure she doesn't need to carry. When he loves deeply, he can't stand the thought of her feeling unsafe or unsupported. His fantasy is to step in and be the answer, to create a space where she can breathe and trust that he's watching over her. That's not control, it's devotion. Alongside protection comes the second half of his dream provision. Now, a lot of people misunderstand this word. They think providing is just about paying bills or buying gifts, but that's surface level thinking. A man's fantasy of providing goes beyond money. It's about giving peace of mind, stability, and a sense of certainty. He wants to know that she never has to question whether things will be all right. In his mind, being a provider means making sacrifices so she doesn't have to carry every burden. It's about creating opportunities, solving problems, and building a foundation strong enough for both of them to stand on. The fantasy of provision is tied to a man's pride. He dreams of hearing her say, "I feel secure with you." That sentence alone fuels his drive because it tells him he's doing his job. Men crave that acknowledgement, not out of ego, but because it confirms that his love is being received. He doesn't just want to exist in her life. He wants to add value, to be the difference maker who brings comfort and certainty. That's how he knows he's fulfilling his role. When a man lies awake at night thinking about the woman he loves, he's not just daydreaming about romance or fun moments. He's imagining scenarios where he steps in to protect her from hurt, where he provides answers to problems, where he stands as her rock when the world gets shaky. That's the fantasy running through his mind, not just holding her hand, but making sure that hand never has to go through life alone. The beauty of a man's love is that it comes wrapped in responsibility. To protect, to provide, to stand firm when she needs him most. That's the fantasy that fuels him, and when he's in love, he spends his life trying to turn that dream into reality. One of the greatest dreams a man has when he falls in love is to make the woman he loves feel secure. That thought lives in the back of his mind all the time. It's not just about financial security, though that plays a role, and it's not just about physical safety either. Security is bigger than both of those things. What a man really fantasizes about is creating a space where she never has to doubt his intentions, never has to question her place in his life, and never has to wonder if she can count on him. That's what real security looks like, and that's the kind of love a man wants to provide. See, when a man truly cares, he studies the little details about what makes her feel at ease. He pays attention to the things that cause her stress or worry, and deep down he imagines ways to eliminate them. His dream is not just to say, "I love you," but to prove it in a way that makes her feel anchored. He wants her to look at him and feel calm, to know that no matter what's happening in the world, she is safe emotionally, physically, and spiritually by his side. That sense of peace becomes his goal. For a man, security is tied to trust. He knows that trust is not given easily, it has to be earned, so he fantasizes about becoming so reliable that she doesn't second-guess him. He wants to show up when he says he will, follow through on what he promises, and be present even when it's inconvenient. That's because security isn't built with big speeches, it's built with consistency. And a man in love knows that if he can give her that steady presence, she will relax in ways no gift could ever achieve. Emotional security is one of the areas men think about the most. Even if they don't say it out loud, he wants her to feel free to open up, free to be vulnerable without fear of being judged or left behind. That becomes a silent dream. Being the one she runs to, not the one she runs from. Men may not always express this desire directly, but it's in their actions. He dreams of being the one she leans on when her world feels heavy, knowing that his strength is not just physical but emotional too. A man also dreams of creating future security. When he pictures life years down the road, he doesn't want her to be unsure about where she stands. He wants her to know she is part of every plan, every vision, every dream he has for tomorrow. That kind of security tells her she's not just temporary, not just convenient, but permanent in his heart and his life. That's one of the strongest fantasies men hold inside. They want to give her certainty that she belongs, that she's chosen, that she never has to wonder if he'll still be there. So when a man is in love, his greatest dream is not just about romance. It's about stability, peace, and trust. It's about making her feel so secure that she never doubts for a second how much she means to him. One of the deepest desires of a man in love is to be admired and respected by the woman he gives his heart to. This goes far beyond pride or ego. It is rooted in how men define their worth. Men are naturally wired to fight, to work, to struggle, and to provide. But all of that effort feels meaningless if the woman they love does not look at them with admiration. The truth is, respect is like oxygen to a man. Without it, he feels invisible, unappreciated, and unvalued. With it, he feels unstoppable. When a man loves, he fantasizes about being her hero. He wants her to see his efforts, even the smallest ones. It could be the way he fixes something that's broken, the way he sacrifices time to be present, or the way he handles responsibilities quietly. In his mind, those things may not always seem huge, but he dreams of the moment when she notices and says, "I appreciate you." That simple acknowledgement fuels his drive like nothing else. Men want admiration not because they are perfect, but because it validates the fact that their hard work is not in vain. Respect is powerful because it connects directly to a man's identity. A man wants to feel that his opinions matter, that his leadership is trusted, and that his efforts carry weight in the relationship. He imagines being with someone who sees the value in what he does and believes in his vision. That belief from her gives him courage to push harder, dream bigger, and go further than he would alone. Men don't fantasize about being controlled or doubted. They fantasize about being supported and lifted through respect. In his mind, admiration is not about her worshiping him, but about her recognizing him. He doesn't need a parade for every little thing, but he longs for her to notice that he's trying. When she shows respect in the way she speaks to him, when she admires him in the way she looks at him, he feels like he's 10 feet tall. That feeling becomes addictive, and he wants to keep earning it every day. It makes him show up more consistently because admiration motivates him to keep being the man she sees in him. A man also dreams of being respected in public. He wants her to stand by him, to speak well of him when he's not around, and to let others know she's proud of who he is. That kind of respect builds his confidence and makes him more protective of the relationship. Men fantasize about being the kind of man that she brags about, not because he's flawless, but because he's committed in doing his best. At the end of the day, respect is the love language men crave the most. A man may not always ask for it out loud, but it's what drives him to keep going. When he is admired and respected, he feels like he can conquer anything. That's why when a man loves, his greatest fantasy is not just to hold her hand, but to earn her admiration every single day. When a man truly loves, one of the strongest desires in his heart is to build a future together. It's not enough for him to just enjoy the moment. His mind naturally starts to think about tomorrow. He begins to imagine what life would look like with the woman he loves years from now, and that vision becomes his motivation. For a man, building a future together means stability, growth, and a shared journey. He doesn't just want someone to be with, he wants someone to plan with, someone to dream with, and someone who will stand with him through every season of life. Men may not always say it out loud, but their love is tied to legacy. He dreams of creating something that lasts, something bigger than himself. When he looks at the woman he loves, he sees more than a partner. He sees the possibility of a life built on trust, hard work, and commitment. That desire pushes him to think differently about his choices. Suddenly, it's not just about his own needs. It's about building a foundation strong enough for both of them. For a man, building a future together means making plans. He imagines where they'll live, what kind of home they'll have, and the life they'll create inside it. He thinks about the experiences they'll share, the challenges they'll overcome, and the memories they'll collect along the way. That's why when he's in love, you'll notice him shifting his priorities. He starts thinking about savings, about career moves, about stability, not because those things matter to him alone, but because he's already planning for us. Instead of just me, building a future is also about family for many men. He may fantasize about raising children together, teaching values, creating traditions, and passing down lessons that will live on long after he's gone. The thought of being able to share that journey with her becomes one of his greatest dreams. Even if children are not in the picture, he still thinks about building a family unit, something solid, loving, and unshakable. That's how men measure the depth of their love, by the future they're willing to build and the sacrifices they're willing to make for it. Another part of that desire is emotional security. A man wants to know that the bond they share won't fade with time. He dreams of still laughing together years down the road, of still holding hands when the world feels heavy, of still choosing each other every day. That's the kind of future he fantasizes about, one filled with love, respect, and consistency. It's not always about grand gestures. It's about building a steady life where she knows she's loved and he knows he's valued. Men also dream of success, but not just individual success, shared success. He wants to celebrate victories together, to look back years later and say, we built this. That might mean a home, a business, a family, or simply a lifetime of memories, whatever form it takes. His greatest fantasy is not to achieve alone, but to achieve side by side with the woman he loves. When a man loves, his thoughts are not trapped in today. They reach into tomorrow, shaping every decision he makes. His heart longs to build, to create, and to leave behind a future where love is the foundation of everything. When it comes to love, men have a very different way of showing it. They don't always use the right words, and they may not always be the most expressive with emotions, but when a man truly loves, it's his actions that speak louder than anything he could ever say. For men, love is not just something to be talked about, it's something to be demonstrated, proven, and lived out every single day. Words may sound nice, but action is what convinces. A man who loves doesn't just say, I'll be there for you. He shows up no matter how inconvenient or difficult it might be. He doesn't just say, I care about you. He pays attention, remembers the little details, and looks for ways to ease your burdens. He doesn't just say, you can trust me. He consistently keeps his word, follows through on his promises, and does exactly what he said he would do. That is love in action, and that is how men communicate what's in their hearts. For a man, action is proof. It's his way of showing that the feelings he carries are not temporary or shallow. Men are wired to build, to fix, to work, and to solve. So when a man loves, he applies that same energy to his relationship. He doesn't sit back and wait. He steps up and does what needs to be done. If something is broken, he wants to repair it. If there's a challenge, he wants to face it. If life gets tough, he wants to stand firm and hold it together. He may not always give long speeches about how he feels, but you will know it by how he acts when life puts pressure on him. Love in action also shows up in sacrifice. A man may not call it that, but it's what he does. He gives up comfort, time, and sometimes even his own desires to make sure the person he loves has what they need. He may work longer hours, he may go without certain things, or he may put his own plans on hold, not because he has to, but because that's his way of loving. That's his language. Sacrifice is his way of saying, you matter to me more than myself. Consistency is another form of action. Love for a man is not about one big gesture every now and then, but about showing up day after day, week after week, year after year. He dreams of being dependable, the kind of man who doesn't just appear in the good times, but stays steady when things are rough. That consistency becomes the clearest evidence of his love, and it's the one thing that words alone could never capture. When a man loves, his biggest concern is not whether his words sound beautiful, but whether his actions line up with them. He knows words can be fun, actions cannot. His goal is to prove through everything he does that his love is real, dependable, and unwavering. That's why, for men, love will always be defined by action, not just words.